Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves. It is the mid-season preview of season 4. Does this count as Paul's season 4 ending or season 5 beginnings? I don't know.
I think when
It's
it's
4.5.
yeah, just put cluster of an episode because that's what we're going to be discussing. So the
Anyways,
cluster.
I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Joining us from Baltimore on the socials, it's Danny.
Good evening.
And our producer in New York City, Alex Patakis.
Hey, guys.
You know, there was a lot that went on over the last month, and the people were clamoring. They were like, we want to know what Whole Lot of Wolves thinks of this.
For some
Well,
reason.
don't be sad, mate. We are here to meet your Whole Lot of Wolves craving. So here we go. In late last month, Paul, season tickets were announced that they were rising 18% for adults and in the triple digits of percentage rise for kids and handicapped. That was not well received, especially when Jeff submitted a letter to the Express and Star, which it's a bold choice to go with quoting three body problem at the beginning of a note when I can't imagine. I've seen it. I'm sure Danny's seen it because he's a big sci-fi guy, but I can't imagine many Wolverhampton guys had watched Three Body Problem. They did walk back a little bit after meeting with the trust. The U14 price is going to be reduced, and there is a ticket price freeze for 2024. But Paul, as a Wolverhampton native, what were your thoughts on the increase?
As a legacy fan, that was a fundamental fault line with my support. That I've always got that attachment, I always will, but that was a real sucker punch in that it probably just highlights what the continued pattern has been in that the game, as like we've known and loved it and grown up with, that's disappeared. And this commercialization, this push for revenue, there's only so many avenues that a club like Wolves can exploit because we haven't got that pull of top six and TV, all of it that goes with it. Molineux isn't conducive as a stadium to bring that commercial revenue in when you're looking at the likes of what the Tottenham Stadium generates, the Emirates, those types of places. They're on a different stratosphere altogether. So I can see why they did it, why they continue to do it. Why I don't think I'm extremely skeptical that they're going back, that they'll go back on those promises for next year and things like that. Just because at the moment they've got that captive market and they're gonna keep exploiting it until that season waiting list reduces and it turns into single seat availability because they know they can with that minimum capacity. They've not got that pressure to fill the stadium. They can really target those more affluent customers, and I say that with a specific meaning that can afford to go. Now that isn't what that profile of football supporter was. Nothing like the good old days, the olden days, how football originated. It was the working class game. It was something that the public did on a Saturday afternoon as a release, and it was always price competitive. It was something you could spend your leisure money on. Now, when you're talking 30, 40, 50 pounds a ticket, that's a lot of money for 90 minutes of entertainment versus something like going to the movies and that type of expenditure. You're going to be...
Although going to the movies can cost about that much these days.
Yeah, but again, it's a totally different experience, totally different different feeling of that support. So it just goes to indicate, what they're pushing for, and it's that horrible sanitized feeling. It's like VAR has become a thing because it's not designed for the match going audience, it's designed for the TV watching audience. That is what we caught up in now, because it's got nothing to do with those match going fans. It's got everything to do with the worldwide audience. I think I saw a point mentioned that it struck home to me. They probably realized when it was on going through COVID and they could pipe in the sound effects of the crowd. Do they need that vociferous, passionate, singing, chanting fan base anymore if it can all be contrived and piped through your speakers at home to generate the atmosphere that way? So it just goes to show that it's a constant erosion of the game that we know and love. They're doing it for a specific reason that they can, but it goes to that more, I suppose, Americanization of the sport of soccer, in that the franchises here can effectively charge a premium again because they can, because it's a closed shop. You don't see anything here in terms of concessions. It's one price. So I reckon they'd be rubbing their hands together at the Wolves if they could do away with under 14 price and pricing for the disabled supporters altogether. A seat's a seat, no matter if you're 16 or 64. And it's just, we're a part of it unfairly, because unfortunately now in America and overseas, we're the target audience, and it's not the target audience for going and paying to watch the game live in the flesh. It's the target audience for being TV rights holders and contributing to that revenue stream, because that's the $1 billion gorilla in the room.
Yeah, Danny, as Americans, we look at an 18% price increase and we're like, yeah, that sounds about normal. That's about what, maybe a little on the high side, but ticket prices go up all the time. That said, I'm going to guess none of the four of us have season tickets to anything. Nope. And so why should we care, though, about Wolves season ticket prices going up?
I mean, it's a good question, and I'm not going to tell anybody that they should care or should not care anywhere beyond, just what my own personal opinion is. But, I was fairly vocal on Twitter about a lot of this stuff, and I just feel like for a lot of Americans, if you're listening to this podcast from the U.S., I have to believe that one of the reasons that you decided to follow a team that plays soccer in the UK is that it offered the experience of watching it offered something that was different from watching American sports. And for some of us, maybe that was just convenience. There are a lot of young parents who are up early anyway, and having a sport to watch early in the day is useful. But for speaking personally for me, it was something where I'd been involved in sports my whole life, various, including soccer and other things, and I'd watched various sports, but like the thing that sort of touched me at the time was, apart from it was a fun team under Nuno, was feeling some kind of connection or identity with the actual place, with Wolverhampton, which like grew slowly. I had to learn about it and whatever, but I happened to see something of Baltimore in Wolverhampton, and I think other people will have other reasons. But it's a relatively small community, and especially living online as I do too much, you get to know a lot of the characters. And so I particularly I feel for people who have to pay this. I mean, an 18% price rise is significant, to say the least. I couldn't help but look up some numbers on this kind of thing, but last year, 2023, in the UK was a particularly bad year for inflation, and I think it was like 7.5%. And it's already gone down. It's expected to continue going down, and the last several years have been lower than that. So if we all expect that season tickets are likely to keep pace with inflation approximately because the club has to be making the same amount of money relative to the economy, then that's fine. But we're talking about 2, maybe 3 times the amount for most people. And a lot of the key economic factors, again, not to get too wonky in this Wolves fan podcast, but a lot of the key economic indicators for regular people, not multi-million dollar companies, billion-dollar companies, the prices of food and grocery goods went up 20%. It's these are the things that matter to those people who are paying those things. And I just think it's extremely short-sighted, not just because Wolverhampton it's not a particularly big city in the UK. There isn't an infinite number of Wolves fans in the UK to fill those seats every single weekend. And we also know that there isn't an infinite number of traveling foreign fans from Korea or from the US or from wherever else, to fill those seats every week. What is the club that they want to be the owners of? Do they want a club that is going to be 2/3 full most weeks, if you're lucky, and then every time we play Spurs at home, it's quite full, And to me, that just reminds me much more of the MLS, where you have a game at a weird time in a hot month in a place like Baltimore or DC. Of course, we don't have an MLS team here, but and against some terrible team that can't be relegated, so they're not fighting for anything, and barely any of the stadium is full. But suddenly, Miami's coming to town and they've put Lionel Messi on a bunch of the advertising stuff, and no one knows if he'll be fit or if he's even willing to play on a field at 6 p.m. at 98-degree heat and 60% humidity in DC. And then suddenly you're out hundreds of dollars. And to Paul's point, that's sort of where I see this going, is the idea of a timeout at a soccer game being this sort of one-off experience that you have, much like in the US, which is like that for many reasons, some of which are understandable, that you would pay $200 all in to go see 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 games a year. And for most people, that's all you can afford. But personally, looking from the outside, that's not what attracted me to watching the Premier League in general and Wolves specifically.
So, Alex, I did feel for the locals. Their prices are going up and everything. And I mentioned Jeff Shee's letter where he quoted Three Body Problem and the whole "you are bug" scene. Have you seen that, Alex? Have you seen Three Body Problem?
I actually haven't, but I don't even need to understand how out of left field that is to include in your.
So here's the thing, though. It's not quite out of left field because of the fact that it's new on Netflix, but it's Chinese. It's based off of a Chinese book, so I understood where Jeff's coming. The analogy itself, Danny, wasn't that bad. It made sense if you've seen the show. It just, you got to know your target audience, and he did not. But anyways, I thought the worst part of the letter for guys like us was when he said, fans also play an important role. If you only pursue trophies or consistent European football, Wolves might not be the ideal choice. If you only love your local team and don't mind their sporting achievement, Wolves may not be one either. Good God, man. Come on. We're working our butts off over here doing a podcast, doing unofficial, official meetings to try and get this US tour going. Alex, that's a slap in the face to us, too.
Yeah, it's a huge one. I also don't fully understand what it means because it seems contradictory. The 2 sentences back to back seem almost, in opposition of each other. So it's kind of silly. But, again, as someone who, I don't think it's fair to call us glory hunters. Like, yes, we probably signed up for this.
Not at all.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't be putting ourselves through what we put ourselves through every weekend if we were glory hunters, because let's face it, there are much easier options out there. So that's, you know, first things first, like none of us are that, even if you want to call us like front runners for being only a part of this for the Fosun era. But what I think is insane is that someone who is concerned about business and who is running this club is saying to anyone that they shouldn't be following wolves. Like literally that on its own is just bad business. So one, like if you are a businessman, you're not a great one. Like because you're really that's not the message you want to be delivering, and you have to understand how that's going to come off. I thought it was a gut punch in the sense that for me, like Danny was alluding to, and I think he was spot on. We all turn to, other than Paul, we turn to wolves for different reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a stark reminder that at the end of the day they are a business. And even though he like caveated that after he said that we are a business, but we're also not just a corporation. It's what's happening with this sport, and it's really really depressing because I think we all turned to it because it was a bit more of a let's face it, like I don't want to generalize and I don't want to get into politics, but European football is a way more socialist and democratic structure of sport than American football, which is, simply a capitalist structure of sport. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
some of us chose to support this because we identify a little bit more with that. But with every reminder that you get from the Premier League, from state-run, nation-state-run clubs to Russian oligarch-run clubs, to all of this money that is pouring into the sport, all the way down to decisions like what Wolves have made, it's just a depressing reminder that at the end of the day, the people who love this sport for a reason are losing. That reason is slowly deteriorating because of how much money can be made on this. So the Americanization, like Paul said about it, is I think the part that hurts the most about the letter, because it's basically like, if you read through the lines, just it's as blunt as I think anyone who's running a club could possibly say it.
Could you imagine Jerry Jones saying that? That would be the lead on Sports Center.
I mean, literally, could you imagine Jerry Jones being like, I don't care about Cowboys fans, their money's green? That's kind of, that's an exaggerated version of what Jeff Shee is saying here. So to me, that was the hardest part because look, I grew up loving the NFL. I covered it for a long time for a living. Like there was a reason my attention is now being paid more to this sport. And I feel like we're not far from all of it. Just what can we feel good about anymore? From a moral perspective, like in sport, that's really, really diminishing. And that's the part about it that I think really stings the most. Let alone the fact that like there's also the part of me, the competitive part of me that loves sports, that loves to think that, hey, 10 years from now, Wolves can compete for the Champions League, because we'd love to feel that we got in at the the ground floor of something special in the grand scheme of things when you look long term, right? That we chose a club that's not in the Champions League every year because we want to grow with that club. And he's essentially saying, if that's what you want, maybe we aren't the club for you. Like,
No ambition. No
exactly.
ambition.
It's just so hard. And
I
will
mean,
say, like, if you're Matt Hobbs and you hear that, how do you feel about your job? Like, I mean, to some degree, to function and to work and put in your best effort every day, there has to be at least a modicum of like a percentage of you that believes that you're working towards a greater good that is one day going to pay off in the greatest sense. And to just hear someone, just hearing it, even if you might believe it, even if 95% of you knows, I'm never going to watch Wolves win a Champions League game, just hearing someone basically tell you that in a coded way it's so deflating. Like I can't think of anything comparable to it in any other part of sport, at least that I'm aware of. But maybe I'm just prisoner of the moment right now.
well, even the way the EPL is set up. Okay, Champions League, I get it. We're not going to compete for Champions League every year. I don't think any reasonable Wolves fan thinks that. But there's no reason we can't make an FA Cup run every year, because it's a one-off. and we should be in competition for a Europe spot every year as a mid-table underdog team. That's what I always pitch. Like, hey man, we've got a chance to make Europe. It's not going to be Champions League, but we can do it. That should be the goal every year. And for him to be like, yeah, that was a real kick in the butt there.
The whole branding of that, and it could have been done in such a way around a one pack message that encapsulated all of that. That we're a challenger brand. We're a little edgy. We do things different. We know that we're not going to be, that glory hunting type of team throwing billions at it, but we are going to challenge. We're going to bloody a few noses, and we're going to surprise a few people. And what he came out with, I still don't understand it, like Alex, and it just smacks of unprofessionalism, like unprofessionalism from a marketing standpoint to try and brand your organization. The whole fulcrum of what it exists around was a horrible miss. But guess what? He's still in a job, and he will be, because he can get away with it. Yeah. I think the powers that be at Fosun, they don't care. They've got him there doing his thing, and he's got a job for life,
Yeah. It's just so funny though, because like, if for someone who is, has a business background, like imagine being a salesperson for any company and going to a sales meeting and being like, look, if you're looking for the best product on the market, we're not it. Yeah. But we're going to be priced like the best product on the market, because that's what we want to be. Even though if that's what you're looking for, you probably shouldn't come. Like, what? Like,
that's incredible. Yeah, that's the best analogy. Oh my goodness. And then he doubled down by responding to these emails. And at one point in our group chat, Danny was like, it's reaching Trump levels. Like, someone needs to take away his phone. And the apex was when, Manny's, who's great, he's one of the shining beacons of Wolves fans. The dude raised $49,000 walking to Newcastle for dementia. Super big on mental health. And he wrote about it to Jeff, and Jeff said, don't be sad, mate. Like, if I was in the PR department, I just would have thrown up my hands and been like, I'm done, hands clean, not doing this. Just like, yeah, unreal. It just completely tone deaf and clueless is what it's been.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
Boy, guys, we have a lot of no stupid questions here about all of these topics and more. So, Alex,
yes,
you want to start us off?
I do. And no stupid questions, as always, even in the off season, brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines, because let's face it, to get through what we've been through this off season so far, you certainly need a drink or two. Esfuerzowines.com. Thank you to everyone who wrote in. So let's get to these. Many of them came in at WLW Pod, the show's Twitter handle, and hello at wholelotofwolves.com, where you could email us. Let's start off with Supergran, who did write on Twitter at Christine WWFC. Can you change to whole lot of wolf? Hashtag don't be sad, mate. We all know she basically threw in 2 of the more regrettable typos / hashtags and ill taste of Jeff Shee. So we'll think about the rebranding there. But let's continue with Greg Ellis, who asks, can you figure out how much the initially proposed rises would generate in annual revenue? Can't have been more than an extra couple of million quid, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things. It's pissed a lot of people off for not a lot of return.
Danny, did you do the math?
I do
Yes.
have some numbers. I don't, I couldn't swear to these. I wouldn't put my house on them, but at the same time, the real figures are not going to be very far off. So essentially, it would probably generate an extra £3 million,
Oh my god.
give or take, maybe as much as five, if you're as generous as possible. But anyway, it's all ridiculous. I mean, when you consider that, for instance, small things like I think we have a question coming. We'll get to it later, but the fact that the teams that are coming up next year are teams that were already receiving parachute payments. So because there's not a team that had already left its parachute payments, namely West Brom, that means that it saved a bunch of money for teams already in the Premier League, and each Premier League team got £5 million just for that. Also, last year I think we spent about £10 million on agent fees alone. And just another nail in this coffin. Jeff Shee said in one of his missives that we benchmark these against other teams, and it's completely absurd because the amounts that you're talking about here are just so insignificant against the larger amount. And he said that we get all this money in broadcast revenue, but it's easily offset by our wage bill. Well, who decides the wage bill? When you were sitting down and negotiating with Cunha, who I love dearly, I hope he gets all the money that he deserves, and also Pablo Sarabia, who I like reasonably well, and I hope he gets paid a fair amount, but it seems like he gets paid a lot. Those are all decisions that led to it being offset by our broadcast revenue. And if we're talking about a mere £3 million, what's the broadcast revenue? Isn't it like 300 million? It's something insane,
something ridiculous.
And so it's like the number that we're talking about here is truly dwarfed by all of the other numbers involved. So it's very, very hard to argue that it is necessary to keep our sort of like daily revenue up. And I guess the last point I'll make about that is that our recently announced front of shirt sponsor, I hear that that's like this very nice deal because it's the last chance to get a betting sponsor in, and that gets us another extra £5 million. So there's another little bit where we could have offset these price rises with another bit of revenue. Who knows?
To put it in perspective, guys, £3 million in extra revenue, that covers 33 and a third weeks of Pablo Sarabia. Just to put it in perspective.
Unbelievable. You could just sell Chiquinho to Sporting and make up the money instead of having him play for a couple of weeks in the preseason and then putting him on loan. Unbelievable. Well, you referred to the question, Danny, so let's just do this one. King Wolf 84 asks on Twitter, as West Brom didn't get promoted, Wolves get an extra £5 million, bar canceling the £3 million season ticket rise. What would you do with that money?
I mean, the easy one is give it to Wolves women and get them into the second tier.
That's
what I
never
want.
going to happen. If we're talking realistic things that would happen, it would go to esports.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to invest back in the club. What are you talking about?
I mean, I would say paint Molyneux, but there's no way that's how much that costs. I imagine you could do that several times over for that amount of money, right? I don't know.
You got to do something to upgrade the fan experience, and I don't necessarily think it's a fresh coat of paint. Maybe a new scoreboard would get people excited. I don't know. You got to think of something that would excite the people who are paying the extra money, not, taking that money to watch Pablo Sarabia, play 30 minutes. I don't know, Paul, you got any ideas?
You go on about match day experience and video screens and everything, and at the end of the day,
so American.
Well, at the end of the day, it's all a load of bollocks. You want to back that team of 11 on the pitch who are giving that all for the shirt, and there's some pride there. You want a stadium that's comfortable, that you're not spending 30 minutes trying to go to the restrooms and the Steve Ball stand at half time, and wading through piss on the floor because the toilets are 40 years old, or queuing.
Okay, that's
40
my
minutes for
suggestion
coffee.
then. Fix the bathrooms. Fix the bathrooms.
So, but then again, you put up with that stuff if there's something to cheer and get behind. So it just it pales into insignificance when it's a relatively minimal amount in the grand scheme of things. It just needs to, they need to fix it.
Yeah. Well said. Let's get to Fed Up Phil's point, who says, no question, but I honestly don't understand how some owners miss that the game day experience, singing fans, passion, shithousery are what draws non-local supporters. If I wanted to sit in a stadium and nosh food while surrounded by boring gits, I'd have chosen Chelsea. To which I say,
Great point.
amen.
It's a really great point.
Yeah.
Wolves fans are one of the reasons to become a Wolves fan.
Chelsea and their American owner really catching strays on this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, deservedly so, I would say, but very succinct, good point, Phil, that I think would be impossible to disagree with at this point. Okay, let's get to Stephen Williams at Coach S. Williams on Twitter. He's, of course, a member of Houston Wolves, and he asks, how can we as fans be excited for what the future holds at our club when the guy running it basically said, don't get your hopes up?
That's the real kick. I'll say this. The U.S. tour was announced. We had a meeting before tickets went on sale. A bunch of us got on there. We got on the next Friday with Todd from Wolverhampton, having a great time. And after that letter came out, we kind of like waited a week before saying anything else, Danny. I mean, it was. Yeah. How do you get excited?
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is you got to bring in some signings.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I definitely suffered from that. This is a funny podcast because obviously none of us are directly affected by the price rises, but it's one of those things where, like you said, we're talking about the U.S. preseason tour. A lot of us are putting a lot of unpaid hours into helping this be a special thing. Obviously the club is going to do a whole hell of a lot in terms of money that they pay to advertise it and everything else. But, even just the people here who, because I live in Baltimore and I know a bunch of people are coming to Baltimore or Annapolis and I love this place. I want them to have a good time. And so I've been thinking about all these things. And after this happened, it's just very hard to, get out of bed and say, I'm going to sit here for a few hours and do something that is in service of that, I'm like putting a bunch of work into this stuff. And it's tough, but it's emblematic of exactly what that problem is. And if you're losing fans at that level where people are thinking like, well, what is even the point? That's a really, really, really bad place to be.
I will point out, after ticket fees, we paid $144 to sit in the lower fan section per ticket. And honestly, that was at a discounted rate too. So woof.
And also the listeners really need to understand how much Josh has been sitting on that fact because he knew it was a really poor time to bring it up 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I definitely kept that one in the vest. Wow, we spent $144 for a preseason game. We're only going to see or Cunha play half the game, But the way I told people, because there were some West Coast people that were like, "Oh, this is just love." I said, "We're kind of paying for the experience more than anything."
I mean,
but I will say one way that it's related isn't it the case that the ticketing system in Wolverhampton is now done by Ticketmaster?
Yeah,
I mean, it's another American company with the same insane business practices, and
Ticketmaster has a great reputation here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's so funny. Funny in a terrible, grim way, like a year ago or whenever they switched, to see all the reactions on Twitter. Oh, Ticketmaster's terrible, and what's this fee and whatever. I'm like, yep, that's exactly what they are. And if they had more of a monopoly in the UK, you can bet those fees are tripling or more. So I hope that the good people of Wolverhampton don't have to deal with that, but it has become a sad reality in the US that any concert, any sporting event that you want to go to is going to have several fees that you don't understand why you're paying to print it at home or paying to put it on your own phone.
I mean, it was so bad the government got involved.
Guys, this question was reasons to be optimistic.
My bad. Paul, what's a reason to be optimistic?
I don't know. My optimism's really tanked, so I can't even remember how the question started. So,
all right. Well, I will say, to tie it back in a little bit more, this is my medium take, which is that, one of the more tragic parts of this is how much work Gary and the rest of the team put into giving us all this hope. And I think most Wolves fans felt that even though we fell short because of squad depth, this was still like an extremely positive season. And it was not just like bad or sad to see that get dashed away with the season ticket thing, but like genuinely like heartfelt. Like, it sucks because like they worked really hard, and I think most fans appreciated that. So I'm hoping that they are all having a good time, out on vacation or at the Euros or at Copa America, and are not paying attention to any of this. And that I hope that they come back and, put in the same kind of effort. And I will also say that, I've had some other meetings with Todd in Annapolis. They might have involved several beers that I drank. And I am really excited for that preseason game. I don't know as much about what's happening in Jacksonville, but the Annapolis one is looking like it's going to be a couple days worth of pretty fun stuff with a lot of team presence and just a good time all around. So I am excited about that now that I'm starting to, calm down.
3/4 of the team will be in Annapolis too.
Yeah.
If I may, because I've had enough gin to feel a little happy, and I ranted a lot before, I do want to say, to add to Danny's point, there's part of me, if I had to look for reasons to be excited, which let's face it, I'm going to be very, very excited as this offseason goes on and as the season draws closer. I would say there's something about the mentality of this team last year that was extremely slighted by Julian Lopetegui and how public he was, that felt like it lit a fire underneath them. And for them to hear some of the things and see some of the things that we may wish that they're ignoring right now as they enjoy their vacations and the Aegean Sea and wherever else, and Ibiza, and then they go on to play in their tournaments. When they get back and they feel like even our own chairman doesn't believe in us. And when Gary O'Neill actually evaluates his situation, I feel like there's part of them that's better when they're operating in spite of other people. And I feel like if this team could win, even though it would only help him, if they could operate in spite of Jeff Shee and almost stick it to him, that has me a bit excited. And I would also say that, like anything in the sport, there is a very big difference between the business side and the football side. And right now, the only football thing that's happened is it seems like Wolves have found new homes for players they've been looking to offload, and they've signed a young, exciting player in Rodrigo Gomez, who they've been linked with for a while, who seems like he has upside, who maybe there was competition to sign, who wasn't just another Portuguese guy that was rumored on Twitter for 10 months that we ended up losing out on. So Matt Hobbs is the reason. Gary O'Neill is the reason. This team's mentality is the reason, and stick it to Shee.
There we go.
Anyway, let's go to Paul Nichols, who wants us to talk about the state of Molineux and the lack of routine maintenance, which we've hit on a little bit, but it's also compounded by a question that we got from our good friend Brian Donnelly of Charlotte Wolves, who says, given the state of Molineux, it got me thinking of the 92 grounds in the EFL. How many do you think would be up to USA fan standards or be nicer than even a big Texas high school football stadium?
So I've been to a lot of the big Texas high school football stadiums, and I can tell you Molyneux would be a dump amongst those. I'm sorry.
Great.
I mean, look, I'm excited when I get to go there. I think there's a lot of history. Like it's gonna be really cool. But if you don't like wolves, I think you go to Molyneux and be like, "What the hell is this?" And that's what most Americans would do. So if we're talking about the state, I mean, probably just the big six clubs. Honestly, Tottenham Tottenham, I would say, is probably the only one that lives up to standards, and that's because it was built to host soccer and NFL games.
Yeah.
And Beyonce.
And
Yeah.
Beyonce, yeah.
I went there. It was very impressive. There's a brewery inside. It was the closest thing to, I feel like, what you experience here. But I got to be honest, like, again, it comes at a price. Granted, it was a rainy Wednesday night and the opponent was Southampton, but the atmosphere was shit, man. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, I might as well have been sitting in, a NFL stadium where it's like, how many diehard fans are there really? And people are wearing like Tom Brady jerseys to watch the Dolphins play the Jets. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it kind of had that vibe to it. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but yeah,
It's more of a touristy place. I mean, and that's what I think the fans are what make it special at a place like Molyneux, which is, going back to an earlier question, like now you're pricing fans out. It's disappointing. Paul,
Paul's-
I mean, you've experienced both now. You've seen the Texans at NRG and some of the others. Like, what do you think? How do you think most Americans would feel at most of the EFL grounds?
It generally be really hard to compare because again it's never football stadia has never been designed for that sit down entertainment aspect and concessions at half time. The whole terrace or the whole stand up and watch the sport, that was designed for make it as cheap as possible to build a stadium and to host a stadium and get as many people in as possible to create the atmosphere and do it that way. So it's unrealistic to compare the two because they've been designed for two distinct purposes. And if you would take average American and put them in Molyneux, they would be going ew, unless they were stood next to someone who was passionate, local, would talk to them and would engage them because that is the blue collar, friendly, local black country person that you would meet. So again, if you've got a shit stadium, you're taking away the people that make it special, that papers over all of those cracks. Then it would be the complete opposite to an American experience. And it goes even to the extent of like the term limbs when a goal scored. Now you would say where you generally see this. Wolves have got a good thing with the South Bank, but it's more when it's away fans and you see the limbs and you see the pure unbridled joy. Those pictures are so captivating. You compare and contrast that to the likes of a Tottenham, like Alex mentioned, or Man United, when the celebration isn't about how many limbs you can break, it's how not to break your mobile phone taking a picture. So that's the comparison that you're really looking across when it comes to atmosphere and what makes Molyneux and its support so special.
Well said. With that, let's move on to Stu's question. Stu from the Wolves fan cast Oh, I accidentally said Wolves. Now I get how Jeff messed that up. Considering that you can't starve yourself, because that would be silly, what pastime or activity would you give up if it meant you could continue watching Wolves?
Now, are we talking about watching Wolves like back in February or Wolves back in April, May? Because that's a big
I'm
difference.
assuming Wolves when it was fun and not a chore.
Wolves
So
when it was fun.
the non-Laji Wolves.
Paul, what would you give up? You'd probably give up the most.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any like ancillary family members, a few in-laws.
Jesus.
Might be going down that body part route and things like that, and paying for it that way. But I don't know. It's like I do whatever's in my power here to watch a game. You know, my Saturday mornings, like family time, is structured around doing everything after 11 o'clock because that's when the game ends. I'm lucky enough that I can dictate a work schedule 90% of the time that I can watch midweek games. Now, I feel that if I was in that position that I was when I was in England and at the time I could afford a season ticket, I'd like to think that at this point I'd be doing everything in my power to keep that and maintain it. And I would be making sacrifices. I'd probably say that there, with what it costs, you're probably talking a family holiday, you know, to take that away and to say that's gonna be put towards watching the Wolves. So I'd probably, if I was in the position that I was, I'd probably be doing everything that I could to keep on going. But I couldn't compare now to what it was to see, well, what would the tipping point be that actually cuts that off completely?
I would give up watching the trash reality TV that I watch every day. And I'm going through. It's been boring lately. I need the Euros to start because I've been going through every season of Married at First Sight and MILF Manor, guys.
Oh,
So
Lord.
I would gladly give that up to watch Wolves.
Oh man, Danny, what would you give up?
I'm going to take this question a slightly more serious direction, which I think Stu will approve of. But I just want to say that, like, you know, the premise of the question is, you know, would you starve yourself to go see Wolves? Because there was that meme on Twitter for a bit with the gentleman who said that was real dedication or whatever. But sort of this is sort of brings together a lot of my previous points that I've said tonight and also online about what is important to value about your supporters as a club. And you know, I just during the whole season ticket debacle, I kept thinking about this bar that I go to sometimes. It's near my office. Go there every few weeks just for lunch or something, and see the type of people who go into a bar on a weekday at noon or 1 p.m. and stay there for a while. And they're watching the Orioles. I just think about, like, you know, like, if you want that atmosphere, if you want people who desperately care, you know, about the successes of their team or when their team loses, you know, it's so important to me that it be for the people who desperately need it the most. And I said this on Twitter. I really don't want to like glorify being poor. You know, like there are many worse things in the world than you know, seeing your team lose when you're poor. But like I have, you know, missed meals for various things in my life. You know, there have been times when that's happened, and I just think, like, you know, regardless of what I can give to Wolves from afar, you know, in terms of revenue or whatever, as a consumer of their product, you know, like I'm happy to give a lot of that up so that people who actually desperately need it have it. Because, like, I can watch them from afar pretty much regardless of where they end up. Now, if they truly get relegated to oblivion, you know, I might have to miss some games, but but it's not that big a concern for me. And I would rather those people who live in Wolverhampton actually be able to experience their team, because like in the end, what is Wolves? You know, like it might seem like the important thing is the badge to Jeff Sheehan. We've all said what a great asset that is for Americans who see the badge and immediately think like, how interesting is that? But in the end, like the thing that is the team is the place that it's in. You unlike in the US, you can't just pick that team up and move it to London or move it to Paris or Rome or Berlin and have it be the same thing. And so, you know, that's my long answer to that, which is that like people shouldn't have to starve in order to see Wolves. And like that's how you should set your season ticket prices. This whole nonsense of benchmarking tickets against teams, it's irrelevant. No one's choosing Wolves season tickets over Fulham season tickets. They're not making this choice like Pepsi or Coke. You know, it's preposterous. Anyway, I think we're getting towards the end of the serious questions, so I needed to have my one last rant about that.
Very nice. I'll go a less serious route and say sleep and sobriety, which we both sacrifice. Plenty,
so what you're already giving up.
Yeah. Exactly. No. In all seriousness, I mean, it's hard for me to. I mean, I agree with Paul. I think like there's times that I just miss out on, family time, I guess you could say. But I don't have kids, but I am married. I am never on the beautiful Saturday morning walks to the parks in New York City and all that good stuff. But
nobody does that. Nobody normal does that shit.
Oh, well, I tend to enjoy it, but no, I think really like I would give up. Wolves to me have surpassed, I think, everything else in sport. And there was a time that I could not fathom like ever missing a second a play of like a Packers game. And if they were both playing right now at the same time, it'd be very, very hard for me not to choose to watch Wolves on TV, just given the state of things. So they are, at least in terms of sport, which again is a much less serious thing than surviving and eating food to survive as a human being. I would give up probably anything in the realm of sport. So now let's move on to some of the more, I guess, typical no stupid question brand type questions that are a little bit more fun. Steve Young asks, Steve, do we have the ambition to push on and bring home the coveted stateside cup? See, Steve, you're what's wrong. You're just chasing trophies here. Glory hunting Steve coming along.
That's what Jeff was talking about, the stateside cup.
Trying to win a trophy. Come on, Steve. It's about more than that.
I just want to see a goal.
It's about
I want to see a goal in the game we get.
I would love to see a Wolves goal in person. Yes, I absolutely would. And also on the stateside cup, by the way, Wolfrunian Dan Wilkes asks, what chant should the U.S. crowd adopt to show our solidarity with the Molyneux season ticket holders and our displeasure with Jeff Shee? And is anything better than "Don't be sad, mate"? I know there's been a lot of planning around this, but have we developed our own U.S. chant that we could start? I feel like we're gonna have to lead this. We're gonna be right there behind the goal.
There were definitely
we are front row, Alex.
Yeah, behind the goal. I mean, like we're the closest thing that we'll get to the group.
I know it's about the French Revolution, but I kept falling back on "Do you hear the people sing, singing the songs of angry men."
If I provide the bed sheets, will you guys do a sign that says "Don't be sad, mate"?
Yes.
or some weird phrase from Three Body Problem or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Can we get a Three Body Problem?
That may be even because that would be the direct shot at him that people wouldn't get.
Some bizarre reference. We're not aliens, Jeff.
Yeah.
We're football fans.
We're not bugs either. We'll have to brainstorm on that one. Thanks for the question, Dan. If anything, it serves as a reminder that there will be really fun parts about this.
Here we go. Three Body Problem quote. No, emptiness is not nothingness. Emptiness is a type of existence. You must use this existential emptiness to fill yourself. Boom. There you go. Emptiness is not nothingness, Jeff.
I like that.
Molyneux's going to be empty soon if you.
All right. John Canning asks us at WLW Pod, where he asks, fellow Yank here, I plan to attend the match in Annapolis and meet fellow supporters. Now having second thoughts after the price hikes. I haven't bought tickets yet. May skip it since the club's profiting from it. Jeff's not dumb enough to come over here for free, right?
I would say don't skip it. And the reason because Jeff Shee is not gonna be at Wolves forever. Okay. And this is gonna be an experience. Look, it's a preseason game. We're not even gonna see these guys like, busting their butt like they're going against Man City. Okay. We just need to go about that. Hopefully we see the starters for over a half. Hopefully we see a couple of goals. But to me, a big part of it is just seeing the guys wearing the badge and getting to hang out with everybody else. I've really grown a tight friendship with a lot of Wolves fans. And so I would say still come, have fun with us, join in on the misery. Just get to know more of the pack. Misery loves company, guys.
Yeah.
Paul, isn't that the whole reason we started this podcast? This was your dream. Expand Wolves.
Yeah, the camaraderie aspect, the growth, the giving a reason why, and again, it comes down to the ownership and that long rolled out statement of a football club's nothing without its fans, and owners come and go, managers come and go, players come and go, and all of that. But at the end of the day, Wolverhampton Wanderers doesn't exist without the fan base. So we'll do as much as possible and continue to do that till the end of days to maintain us as a club. So I think by coming along, it just goes to highlight that it's bigger than Jeff Shee. It's bigger than Fosun. It's what it's all about, and it's the people that you stood next to or sat next to, enjoying your concessions at half time.
Yeah, I'll just say to add on a little bit. I've been in touch with some of the people planning, and I've obviously met with Todd from Wolves. And I just want to say that, first of all, I'm not going to tell anybody to go or not go. Just if you feel like not going is like a stand that you need to make, then that's your choice, and that's fine. I will say that there are a lot of good people who work for Wolves who I think work very hard and also want to put on a good experience for the people who are coming. And also, a weird wrinkle in this whole thing from an American perspective is that because we have, like a interest form and whatever, my sense of things is that part of the reason why any Premier League club comes to the US is that lots of people go to see a Premier League game who aren't necessarily Wolves fans, or in the case of the Indianapolis game, Crystal Palace fans. They just know that Premier League teams are good teams to watch, and they will end up showing up. They won't know anything about the season ticket thing either. And they're just going to show up and pay whatever money to go see Premier League teams in the U.S. And so I'm not saying that if you don't go, someone else is going to take your seat automatically. But I will say that they're going to make money off of this U.S. tour regardless, and possibly off of fans who don't care at all for Wolves or the people in Wolverhampton. So I don't think that it needs to play a bigger role than that in your decision. And like Paul said, come if that's what you want to do, and, have fun with lots of the other Wolves supporters who will be here. I hope that there's some people here from the UK. I'm sure there will be several. I don't know what proportion. But, that's the most important thing, is making those connections. So I hope that helps.
Yep. Don't let them steal your joy. Just, you gotta.
Is that three-body problem too?
Yeah. Let's get to. Todd DeWitt asks. I might have missed a reference here. Do you think Tito Jackson will be at the stateside friendlies?
Tito is apparently a Wolves fan. Yeah.
Come on.
This is
Yep.
going back to the depth of randomness, but he began
Yeah.
to appear early Fosun years, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for some bizarre
Where'd he
reason.
go?
I know he has vanished off the face of the planet. It appears, certainly when it comes to Wolves support. So
Maybe he'll reemerge
yeah, yeah.
in Annapolis or in Jacksonville.
Yeah, someone's got to get on the phone to him. What about Mark Hamill? Can we get him? What's he doing?
Or Robert Plant. So Jackie Jackson visited Molyneux with Tito in the summer of 2019. Jackie Jackson, Alex, he said that he became a supporter of the old Gold and Black after seeing
Adama.
the Adama Traore
Oh my
play.
God.
There you
Come
go.
on, man.
I
Come on,
feel
man, he
Wolves-
is a marketing machine. That dude is gonna make so much money if he ever comes to MLS. So much marketing money. Oh, I wish I
he's
was his agent.
He's already made Wolves. I mean, think about how many people he's roped in, and all he had to do was just be out of his mind jacked, and
Yeah.
then
yeah.
claim he doesn't work out. Okay, now we are technically in a summer transfer window. Wolves made some news, and by the time this is released, they may have announced the signing of young Portuguese winger Rodrigo Gomes. But let's get to some questions about the transfer window, not related to our new Gomez. Drew asks, would you rather Shea Adams on a free, Michi Batshuayi, or Yuri Alberto? Now, all of these Wolves have been linked to. There's been constant talk about Shea Adams. Also talk that he may stay at Southampton. Who knows what's what? But if you guys had to pick a attacker of those three, who are you going?
I tell you what, man, the Brazilians are coming in and they are loving Molyneux. So I would say Yuri Alberto. Plus, I don't even want to try and pronounce Michi's last
Batshuayi?
name. Batshuayi. Yeah.
Oh, it's not that
Batshuayi,
hard.
baby.
You'll get it.
Yeah. No, I don't even. And Che Adams would be solid, but no, Yuri Alberto, he shouldn't have come here if his agents weren't greedy bastards. So that's who I say.
Paul, you have a
I
preference?
want this shiny new object of the Brazilian as well. That we know what the other two can offer. I'm in the sign Che Adams camp as a squad player if the deal is right, because he's gonna have some offers on the table to probably double what he's on now at Southampton, either staying with them or moving elsewhere. So if he doesn't come, I've got a pretty good confidence that we have been in for him, but that the deal doesn't make sense financially. So I'm okay with that. But that means out of the three, I'd like some more Brazilian flair in our attacking department.
Yeah. Okay. Danny, are you making a clean sweep on the Brazilian flair?
Yeah, I'm pretty much where Paul is. I'm pretty happy with Che Adams coming in as depth, but of the other two, I prefer Yuri Alberto.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so Nothing But Neto, frequent guest on the show now. Our good friend Adam asks, most important position for this recruitment window? For me, we need to fix our defense. Gary O'Neill was able to get the best out of the forwards and midfielders for goals this season, but the back has always been our weakest point. What do you guys think? Priority number one should be Paul?
It depends on who we sell.
Josh?
I mean, if we sell Neto, well, maybe Rodrigo is going to be the guy to replace him. If we sell Kilman, I would like to see another true sweeper like Connor was, except a little bit better on defense. I think if we're going to try and still run that back three, back five, need a sweeper, man.
Yeah, knew Rodrigo and his potential for right wing back indicates that they might not be doing away with it, but then has he got that flexibility to play both positions equally well? So that's intriguing for me with this particular deal. But I just think if they could nail getting a solid back four that has some solidity about it, it opens up so much more potential for doing stuff in the attacking third, that you've effectively got that extra player to play with. They've got the midfield defensive cover sorted. But then I think you're probably certainly looking at one centre back at least. And that's probably my priority, that when you mention someone like Cody, I think what we need is that heir to Dawson that can be that leader and just be that dominating centre back that sometimes you need. And even if it's like it doesn't need to be a young up and comer so much, even someone again in his mould that's a little bit more experienced, that can come in for 2 or 3 years, that they know that they've got this kind of continuation, that they've got a role to fill. I think that's what I'd be looking for, because I think if you bring that player in that's a Dawson heir, you could have a number alongside him that they would make their game better as well. Like a Kilman, like Santi, they wouldn't have that much pressure on them if they can have that organizer alongside them.
It is crazy how the team just dropped off on defense without Dawson. That really makes you understand how important he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it very hard to answer the question in a way because, when all the players were healthy last year, we didn't necessarily have a particularly bad depth problem. And so I think like the back line, I see what Adam's trying to say, where, like we lost one player and suddenly things went downhill. So like that shows a weakness. But at the same time, I don't know really what Gary thinks about, once he has his system set up and he's doing preseason with them, how does he think they line up in terms of a 3 or 2 center back pairing? And then in addition, when you throw in players like Totti who can play left wing back or left back, I suppose, and then you also have Mosquera who can also play like a right back or something. There are all these kind of wild cards in there that I find it hard to say, oh, absolutely, we need one more center back. In addition, I almost think like, oh, well, then don't we need to get rid of someone? So it's almost like more like we need the right personnel, the personnel that Gary actually wants. And so to answer the actual question, I'd say that for me, it still just has to be a striker. I've long said that, I don't think it's as important as some people say to have like a classic number 9, some people talk like Chris Wood or whatever, but it's like, it's a player that we lack right now, is to have someone, if we wanted to play that way. And I like Che Adams and what he can potentially do, but the guy's 5'10". He holds the ball up well, but he is not going to be the like just set him up there and try to find balls to send to him kind of guy. I think he'll be useful, but yeah, if there's a player that we fully lack, it feels like it's an actual striker.
Yeah, as has been the case for God knows how long.
For 5 years.
Yep. All right, we'll see. It's early in the window. You got a signing coming in, and without knowing the outgoings, they might not be in such a bad position in terms of depth. So let's move on to some fun ones before we get out of here. At King Wolf 84 asks if you could be sponsored by a different dodgy company to now, is it DBET? I don't even know how you pronounce it.
DBET.
Yeah, DBET.
Who knows?
The new shirt sponsor of Wolves. Who would it be? Who's got a good shady company that they're willing to nominate for the front of the Wolves shirt? If you had your way,
I mean, it's got to be a Trump business, right?
Oof.
Right. Oh my God.
I've got a good one, and I don't know if it's fair to call shady. But do any of you know what Shen Yun is? And it is Chinese.
No.
Okay. So there is a joke in
Rings a
New York
bell.
City that Shen Yun is like actually just some kind of crazy cult.
Oh yeah, the performing arts thing.
It's a performing arts thing that we think is a religious group that operates out of a warehouse somewhere in Deer Park, New York, and their advertising budget is through the roof. Literally, since I moved to New
That's a
York,
great answer.
all I've ever
That's a
seen
fantastic one.
is posters of Shen Yun. And I'm like, how do they make the money and sell enough tickets to advertise everywhere, on every subway, on every building, on every billboard all over New York? It's like you have to hide from Shen Yun because it's just like hits you over the head. And I don't know how many people are going to see a show about, the rise of communism in China or whatever it's about. So I still think there is something very, very, there will one day be a documentary about Shen Yun, put it that way. So I'm putting that on there because I feel like
This is a great answer. I know exactly what you're talking about, so I'm sure other people in the U.S. will know about it. I have no idea if this has crossed the pond, but basically it's like Cirque du Soleil, but with like a Chinese cultural flavor
Oh, I
to
know
it.
what you're talking about now. Yeah.
Yes.
I
And-
thought it was just a Houston thing based on the
No,
multiculturalism in the city, and you're
And
blowing
I've
my
had
mind saying
people
this.
come into my office and hand me things for Shen Yun. I'm like, you're like handing out flyers door to door. Like, how'd you get in this building? There's security downstairs. You need a badge. Like, how are you here? Like,
Yeah, so I had to look it up just to remind myself, but they are operated by the Falun Gong, which are like a new, very ultra conservative religious movement in China that is banned by the Chinese government, and they categorize it as an illegal organization. But they run like an amazing like Las Vegas-esque show in the U.S.
so illegal.
That's a great
Chinese
answer.
run. This has got wolves written all over it.
Yeah.
That's genius. That's pure genius.
How much money do they have, I wonder?
Yeah. Would you buy the shirt?
Yikes. That's a big yikes. At least I can just imagine that Tibet is like just a website with no like purpose to it.
By the way, did you see on Stu's Twitter today? I didn't realize this, although I guess we should have realized it. But that when Wolves released that video, it was a hired actor that was playing.
There's more information to this. He's actually part of the organization, but he puts actor on there because he happened to be like on a movie or TV show and he had like one line. So
Wait, the
he has
bearded guy? The
Yeah.
bearded
he
guy?
has it in quotes like as kind of like a joke to himself that like I'm an actor because I had like one line in a TV show or something.
I must have,
No, there was a lot of intrigue going around because of course they announced it today, and Tibet ENG, their English language account, had exactly one follower when they announced that, which was the Wolves account. And yeah, so who the hell knows? I mean, we don't have time to go into this whole damn thing. Basically, it's a betting sponsor that only recently set up an English language website. They seem to want people to believe that they are a German betting website because DE like is the ending for German websites, .de. And also like there's a guy on it with like the German flag like painted across his face. Also, they've gotten in trouble for illegally using image rights for active players and such. So it's not great. It's another really not great thing, but we're past the section where we're talking about things that make us
They
sad.
did say it was a record deal for Wolves. So when I saw that, I said, well, there you go.
I mean, whatever. It'll be illegal in 2 years or whatever it is. So
That's right.
Let's just take the money while we can.
Maybe Enron would have been a good sponsor too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
See, that's the spirit. Okay, another one from Todd DeWitt. If you could enshrine a moment from Wolves history in a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle form, what would it be? I like this one. I got a feeling somebody's going to say the same thing as me, so I'll let you guys go first. Paul, what moment from Wolves history, since you have the biggest backlog of it, that you could make into a puzzle?
Mine would be Alex Ray's celebration when he scored the winner in the second leg of the playoff semi-final when we went up in that season.
Nice. We're all
I've got an off the beaten path one here. I know everybody's going to think I'm going to go with an Adama moment, right? I'm actually going to say João Gomez's goal against Southampton in his debut, where he had that just pure face of joy. that would be the jigsaw puzzle.
That's like a
And with the players huddled around him, it would
Yeah,
make
with
a
the
good,
players huddled around him and his face of like,
it would make a good
This is
puzzle because
amazing.
of course they're all wearing the same shirt. So you're like looking for the minor differences in like how much they've sweat that game or whatever.
mhm.
yeah. That's also like a futures bet in terms of puzzle making because you're betting on Zhao being
Right.
like a Wolves legend, which it sounds like he's down for sticking around. Danny,
I'll go with an easy one, which is it's not really a moment, but you know, when they came back from lockdown and had that big mosaic of supporters' faces that like showed the players and whatever. I submitted a picture to that, and I still like have an image that I've like zoomed in 20 times to it to see where I am. And it's me and my friend Edgar who watch a lot of Wolves games together. I just went back in my phone and found that I took that picture on September 1st, 2019. Not a great day because it was Everton 3, Wolves 2. Willy Bolly got a red card in the 95th minute. I don't really remember that game, but I'm not surprised. but I think that the mosaic would make a very good puzzle.
Nice.
Also, Raul Jimenez putting on the luchador mask would be a solid puzzle.
That is good, yes.
yeah. Call me prisoner of the moment, but I think if you could get, I would have to find the right image, a West Brom shirt or fans in the background of Cunha doing the celebration. That would be a
The celebration,
good,
yes.
a good
Mhm.
freeze frame at some point. Assuming he sticks around, it's kind of like a futures bet as well. Assuming he sticks around, which I think he will. Okay. Finally, Chris Wood asks us, who will be the first to complain about VAR? Oh my God! Come on, Premier League teams! What the hell, dude?
The answer, and will always be the answer, is Liverpool.
Even without Klopp,
Even without Klopp.
Either-
I just think it's ingrained in him now.
Slot comes right in and just fills those shoes like right away.
I don't know. Marinakis probably has a form letter already made up for the 2024 season.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess is there anything left to say about that? I mean, other than, were you surprised at all? 19-1 this vote.
No. Apparently, that was Jeff like kind of panicking and just throwing it out there, even though he had no support. It seems about right.
I'll be interested to see what reforms come out of it because I said at the time it seemed like it's a perfectly fine proposal to do if it means that you can shock people into actually changing things. So I wasn't terribly surprised that they didn't get a single vote, I suppose, although that's kind of a bummer. You'd think even like Forrest might have thought to
Yeah,
get a vote,
right. What the hell,
especially if they knew
Forrest?
it wouldn't happen anyway. But yeah, just to get the people sat down and talking about it, it'll be worth it if they can. If honestly, if it's like 15% better next season,
Yeah.
that I would take that win.
What I'm wondering is, like, do we end up getting punished more for this, or is it so blatantly obvious that we are being punished because we put that forward that they almost can't do it? Because then that opens up the whole like conspiratorial can of worms. Like Josh always says that there's some type of like scandal that's going to come out. So they, like, will we somehow benefit? Because it
I'm
would
still
be too
convinced there'll be
obvious.
something.
Yeah,
There'll be something that comes through.
we'll see. What is the first match day? August something in the teens. I give it until that exact day for there to be a VAR controversy against Wolves. Fixtures coming out next week, by the way. So by the time we, if we do another off-season pod, we'll have some nice dates to look forward to. But until then, we can look forward to the summer series.
Looking forward, I'm going to be picking out which weekend I'm going to be going to Molyneux once those fixtures come out.
I think we should all time it and go together. I think a little field trip, a little school trip would be.
Oh my God,
fun.
Stu wouldn't know what to do.
Oh man, I would be.
It'd be like the American podcast invading Wolverhampton. Holy cow, Pod! How would we be received?
Oh, yeah.
Fairly well. I
Yeah,
hope.
yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on what you wear.
I'm
But yeah.
still a big fan of the idea of Josh bringing his cowboy hat and going to the Great Western pub and saying that he thought it was a theme bar.
Yes, I love that. Oh, man,
So apparently everybody wants me to wear the cowboy hat in Annapolis again, which is going to look ridiculous because I'll be wearing shorts. What
Oh.
are the thoughts? No?
it's a go. You have to. Shorts be damned. Or don't wear the shorts. And
Or
There's a
don't.
clamor.
Yeah. I think I've typecast myself now with that cowboy hat back to back.
And I didn't get to see it last time,
Yes.
so you gotta. I can't meet you without the cowboy hat.
Okay.
Yeah, come on. That's
Gotta
it for
play into Texas.
Thank you to everyone, honestly, for sending in all these questions and for people reaching out to us to want to know what we think about something that's happening on a different continent. That's honestly, that's really nice to see. So everyone who submitted your No Stupid Questions, thank you. And thanks to Esfuerzo Wines who bring you No Stupid Questions every week. Go to esfuerzowines.com. Use the promo code WOLVES to get a discount on your wine order. They showcase 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. It's damn good. And like I said, buckle up. It's been a hell of an off season. Treat yourself. Get a little buzz going. What better way to do it than with some great wine from Esfuerzo?
It's been a hell of an off season. It hasn't even been July yet.
I know.
I know, right? Jeez.
So that brings this special episode to an end. Thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, you, the listener, for tuning in. We will be back at some point during the pre-season. We've got these plans around the games and obviously what happens with the squad departures and incomings to talk about as well. So there will be lots going on throughout the summer. So as you walk proudly around in your cowboy hats or not, just say, up the mighty Wolf.
Don't be sad, mate.
You can get exposure for your business like Esfuerzo Wines have enjoyed throughout this year. Just email hello@wholelotofwolves.com for both segment and main show sponsor opportunities for the upcoming 5th season.